All right. So to kick things off, I'd love for you to give us your name, where you're located, age, and what you're up to.
Okay, name. So my name's Leightanna, and I am in and from London. Um, Gosh, what was the other thing? Name, age, and what I do.
Yes.
Um, so I am an emotional wellness coach. So I typically, like, based on what I've been doing lately, I help coaches basically find their way in. Like, so when people often own businesses and are really busy, they tend to get really swept up in it all. And I'm
Mm,
just kind of here to remind people that their emotional health and their emotional wellness is key.
mm,
And actually, they perform better in business when they're rooted and grounded
yes.
within themselves, right? I'm really passionate about it. It's definitely been something that I've navigated myself, and so yeah,
I think we're on a very similar path. Mine just happens to be packaged as like design your life coach. But I
yeah.
think at the end of the day, what am I trying to do with people? I'm trying to emotionally help them stay regulated. So it's very much a similar path. So I think what you're doing is great work because it's the same type of mission that I'm on myself.
For sure. I feel like you're a lot more, than I am. And I think I definitely need that. You're a lot more organized. You seem to have like a clearer vision, whereas I'm like here. And I think that the energy that I bring forward is really necessary and really helpful. But I do sense that I bring forward this, like, what will be. And it's just
Mm.
important that I show up. And that's really important too. That's really, really valid. But I think there needs to be structure too.
I think it's a little bit of both. It's the discipline, showing up consistently, knowing what you're working towards, having a clear vision. But then also, even before I got on this call, I was stressed out on a few separate business things, and I have to remind myself, trust the process, let it go, be patient, right? So I think it goes hand in hand. And if
Yeah.
you lean one side or the other too much, I think it can be a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's kick things off right there. I think that was kind of some of the inspiration for why you ended up signing up for the submission to even have this call. But
Yeah,
I'd love to
exactly.
just open it up on like, where can we start? What is most relevant in your life? What are you trying to work through, whether it's business, personal, whatever? Yeah, I'd love to give you as much value as possible during this call.
Okay, great. Um, so the decision to niche down on emotional wellness, because when I studied, so I'm a qualified holistic health coach, and that means a lot of things. So the decision to do just emotional health was because I had this passion for it and it felt right. Um, but my thing is, I think when you start something, like when you start a business, it's just really important that you show up. It's just really important that you do the initial steps. But now I'm at this point where I have shown up and I have done the thing, and I think it's really important to be clear with what I do. I have these
Mm,
conversations with people, and I'm not always as um, I think the way that I describe what I do can be a bit confusing, and that's not very it's not very helpful for me or for them, because potentially, like, we're both missing out, right? Because
hmm
if I give some sort of vague answer, they're like, okay, cool, great. Yeah, most people are like, you're a holistic thing, aren't you? And I'm like, yes, I'm a holistic thing. So it just shows that people don't have that understanding, and I think it's a shame on both ends. And so
mm,
but my reason for, I guess, not being like, this is what I do, is because I don't want. For some reason, I've convinced myself that people will miss out if I choose something and I aim at one thing. Everyone around it won't get to experience what I have to offer,
mm.
which I don't know. I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah. So this is a process that I've been going through for literally the last 18 months. And even recently, 2 weeks ago, I was like, up, reset button. We got to course correct. But I think it's really important to define who you're trying to serve, right? So like when I say that to you, how would you describe the ideal person you're trying to serve, whether it's even through social media, whether it is in a client capacity? Like, who's your target demo for what you're creating and what you think will drive the most value to this individual?
I think maybe the answer to this question will shed light as to why it has been a bit like confusing, because when I was training, I was very sure that my target audience would be women like me, essentially me 5 years ago, or me
Hmm
8 years ago. But I haven't, I don't know if I've worked with anyone like me. As I say, I guess I have, but it doesn't feel that way. I guess in my mind, it would be women, and women that like understood there was more, but didn't quite know what the next step was, didn't
Okay.
have the tools or access to, any of the things that yeah, that would basically help their like emotional wellness grow. But
Great.
as I've said so far, I've basically worked with super busy people who were like stressed out and just really anxious. And I guess in some way, like there are still crossovers there, but I'm working with people that are basically doing what I'm doing, which is fine. So I don't know. I think perhaps the fact that my initial like audience is actually not who I end up working with, perhaps that's where the weird sort of,
Disconnected.
yeah.
So let me frame it like this. I think this will help really hit home for you. It's in our best interests oftentimes to create the thing that we wish we had needed or wanted previously. Like you mentioned, you're creating content, creating a program, creating courses, whatever, or have visions to do these things because you want to create something to serve the younger version of yourself. Okay. So let's look at that in parallel for me. Same thing. I'm creating content, one-on-one coaching program, digital courses for the 5 year younger version of myself who was burnt out, lost, didn't know how to organize his day, neglecting certain areas of his life, yada, yada. So if you sat down and you thought about those characteristics about yourself 5 years ago, what is it about you that you're now trying to help?
So if I had to describe like me 5 years ago emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
and specifically like those overlapping with like clients, um, I'd say that I was definitely confused, I was lost, and I definitely had poor like emotional hygiene. Like emotions, I would say, ruled my life just because I never understood them, and I didn't understand that. I don't like to use the word control, but you could have control of them in to a certain aspect. 'Cause I do think that there needs to be some freedom with the whole emotional health topic.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say words, just saying words, perhaps like lost, misguided, searching for answers, because I definitely felt like there was more. I definitely like existing and living a life that I was like, I don't really love this. I think there's more. I don't know how to do it. I don't really know what to do. I felt, yeah, lost, stuck.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
Do you mind sharing what you were doing 5 years ago, whether it was career or like what were you doing at that point in your life?
Yeah, I don't mind. I was teaching, which I've only just stopped doing recently, but that was quite intense for hours. And like, I guess while I was doing that, I knew I was good at it. It was a safe job. Like, I remember my dad telling me when I was younger that I was going to be a great teacher. Um, don't think he meant for adults, which is where I ended up now. But I've just always had this like I'm really good at it, and I think we all
Mm.
have that thing that we could continue doing easily because we're really good at it, you know. So I was doing that, and the thing is with me, I find it's easy for me to find joy in things. And so I think that's an incredible trait to have, but what it does is backfire in a way that I could be in a situation that isn't for me or great
Mm.
or progressive and still be like, you know what, it's just amazing that I'm here.
Yeah.
It's serving me in this way, and this is a great thing to be able to do. But again, so yeah, teaching didn't it felt like I was good enough at it, but it felt very safe.
Okay.
It didn't
Fair enough.
felt like I could do more. I'd watch videos of people doing what we currently do, and I'd be like, gosh, like I love that. Like I just felt this pull toward them. I didn't understand it then that that was essentially my soul being like, this could be you. You can do this. And then the second piece was that I was in a relationship that wasn't really serving me, and I think when you are in a relationship that isn't serving you, it can be very tumultuous, um,
Mm.
emotional wise. And I felt myself like Instagram is incredible, so I felt myself being drawn to these accounts that were almost that were quite informative, and I was like slowly learning about the nervous system and subconscious and reading loads of books. Like, so yeah, I think when I look back, I realize now that I was really hungry for knowledge. Like I was reading so many books. I didn't understand why I was just like back to back to back to back. um Anyhow, yeah, so
Okay.
a job that was safe, a relationship that was also safe, but clearly not aligned. And I guess that's where they're like lost and yeah,
Okay. That's
confused.
fair. So this is really good context, because what I'm hearing then is two different types of people that maybe, if you aren't already testing or targeting, you might be able to create your messaging to align with them, right? So once again, as a parallel example, I'm always thinking about content messaging for the younger version of myself. Does this align what I like? If I take myself mentally and emotionally back to that moment, is this what I would have needed to hear? It's kind of selfish because you're creating content for yourself, but I do that because I know there's someone else out there that's in the shoes that I used to be in. So for you, what I'm hearing is two potential versions of you could go back to, which is the one that was in a comfortable career, but also just felt like inside this isn't the right thing, which obviously bears a lot of emotional like roller coasters for you. You're like questioning if you should be just happy to be where you're at, but also you're like, I feel like there's something bigger in me. So there's an emotional journey there that you can unpack. But then also the relationship where, however long that might have been, maybe there's a whole angle on like how to navigate being in a relationship that maybe you just feel like emotionally isn't giving you what you need. So that's just immediate thoughts, right? So like I don't know how much that sits with you, but I think what's so important in it, and trust that I'm saying this as someone that needs to remind himself all the time, is like I have to keep reminding myself, who is that specific person that I'm trying to hit and target. Because if both of us are in the coaching spaces trying to build a business, you're shooting yourself in the foot by not getting extremely niche, right? Because if you go wide, which is honestly, it's the people pleaser in me. I want to help millions of people. So like, let me create a TikTok about how to help your habits so millions of people can be impacted. That's great. But if I want to build a business, I need to get real specific. So I went from creating content that's habits for everyone to how to create the best habits as a founder or an entrepreneur, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what I'm thinking for you, is like to challenge you is like, what are the characteristics, the demo, who's that specific person you're trying to target? And there's always going to be those like instances, if it's creating content or it's a client that maybe like doesn't check every single box. But I think more times than not, you want to speak to that specific person. And maybe it's two or three. Maybe it's the person that's in the relationship. Maybe it's the person who's in the career.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the person that is just lacking confidence, and because that their emotions all over the place. What are your initial thoughts there? I know there was a lot coming at you.
Um, no, I feel like it's spot on. And actually, as you were saying it, I realized that I hadn't actually sat down. I've done lots of different target audience activities, but I realized I haven't actually sat down and said or written it down, because I write a lot and I haven't actually written that. This is who my
Mm.
target. And I realized how such a simple thing could bring me so much clarity. And with
You know, it's
everything
a good
else,
activity. It's a good activity that I just did yesterday that I think would really help you, is sit down, and maybe you've already done this before, and create a list of all the past emotions that you went through during that phase of you 5 years ago. What
yeah,
were those just one word like emotions? Frustration, overwhelmed, sad, lost. Like write down as many emotions as you can think. And then I want you to think about the version of you are today, who clearly is still about to crush the coaching space and creating content. Like you're so much more clear on where you're going, even though you're trying to figure it all out as somebody like myself is.
yeah,
But write down all of those emotions that you feel now on a daily basis. You feel more grateful, you feel
mm,
clear,
yeah,
energized, right?
right,
And now you have the previous emotions and the end emotions. So you have literally, most people are trying to get from point A to point B. So now you have like an emotional diagram of what is someone feeling on the left side and what do they feel like when they get to the right side. And that also will help you just like understand your target demo, what they're emotionally feeling, so that when somebody does ask you, what do you do? Like, what's your coaching program on? You're just like super confident. Like, yeah, I help women in their 20s that are feeling lost, disconnected, and unfulfilled step into a reality where they're confident, they're excited, and they're motivated for the life they're building.
yeah,
Like you'll be able to start connecting the where they were to where they are, where they're going to be, because you're able to put yourself in the position that you used to be in and who that version of you looks like to present day.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I will definitely try that, and I guess that's the that's the work, trying to figure out a way to bridge the gap. I feel like it's one thing to do it for yourself, and I think
Mm.
it's part of the work to figure out how to make something that was really real for you, like a whole journey, to make it almost palatable, to make it very clear and simple, so that people can
Mm.
get from here to there. But I
And
appreciate that.
the best thing you can do is continue to share your story. What were those pivotal moments? Once again, this is another activity, right? So now you do the
Yes.
activity where you're mapping out the emotions of before and after. Another activity could be, what are those significant moments over the last 5 years that like had an impact on you? And it doesn't have to be these glamorous moments. It was like, oh, I started listening to audiobooks. Oh, I started going to conferences.
Hmm.
Oh, I started being mindful of the people I was spending time with. Like, what are those small decisions you've made over the last 5 years that have had a ripple effect on you?
Right.
Because then you can start to story tell those moments of your story through your messaging, through your content, and people are sold on emotion more than they are on like a product. Look at Nike. I always use Nike as an example. Like, nobody buys Nike because it's the best shoe. People
Yeah.
buy Nike because they're attached to the emotion, the campaigns, the marketing, the just like everything behind the logo and behind the name, right? So it's like,
Yeah, it's a very good
how do you
analogy.
create that emotional connection with your audience and people that are looking to you? It's by sharing your story and telling it in different mediums for them to connect with you, also while sprinkling in, you know,
Yes.
lessons and advice and tips and all that good stuff.
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. As you were talking, I realized that I wasn't as comfortable with, you mentioned sharing your story and how that would be helpful. I guess like we are like living in a space where that's happening a lot, and it is connective, and it is really important for people to know where you've been and know that
Mm-hmm.
you didn't just come out of the womb that way. You weren't just born this way. You worked for it, and they
Mm-hmm.
can too. That's really an important part of the journey. But I realized as you were talking that I wasn't, like, I kind of like shriveled up a bit when you said to share my story, because like
Mm.
yeah, I'm not in love with that idea. And I guess I've been sort of battling with the idea that I don't have to sell, and I know that's not what this is not what sharing your story is, but it feels sometimes that you kind of have to, like, not sell your soul, but just like kind of open your entire like heart up to the internet, and it just feels it's a
It's
lot.
a lot.
It's a lot.
So let me say this. I don't expect you, or I wouldn't encourage and say tomorrow morning I want you to wake up, write the deepest blog you've ever
Yeah.
written and share all of your secrets. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You have to be your own compass and asking yourself, is this something
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with sharing or is it not?
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been on this process and journey for the last 8 years, and I've continued to like stretch out and see, does this feel comfortable? Does this feel not? There's certain subjects I will talk all day about, certain things that I have never spoke about on the internet, and maybe someday I will. But I have to keep asking myself what feels good, what is my true north in the sense of what feels right and what doesn't.
Yeah.
But let me tell you this. One part of my story when I was living in real time, which is I was a full-time Uber driver for 3.5 years. In those moments, I thought I wasn't shameful about being an Uber driver, but I just was like, I feel less than other people. And now being out of it, it is one of the strongest parts of my story because it gives people hope within themselves. This is the guy that was driving Uber, which anyone else could start up and do today. And it gave them hope to put themselves in that shoes. Oh, his Uber was my McDonald's. His Uber was me working the job that I hated. His Uber was me doing X in my life, right? Like we all have those things we had to do that we didn't want to do.
Yes.
So, why I share that is to say to you that even those things that you're comfortable with sharing, but you're like, I don't know, like it's part of my story. I'm not really proud of it. It doesn't make me like a better coach. It actually does. It makes you
Yeah.
more relatable to people because they see and hear someone who's authentic. And everybody wants to see the underdog win. They don't want to see the person that just came out on top. They want to see the underdog. So
Yeah.
the more you're able to share your honest truth with people, the more they're going to be sold into you. And once again, you have to gas and brake and test what feels right for you. But your story is your greatest strength.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I think I guess I should just look forward to the journey of getting more comfortable in that space.
Yeah.
Um, I'm currently not, but that's okay. And I can see myself getting there in a way, as like you said, that works for me, that feels aligned, that feels
Yeah.
comfortable. Because obviously, as we're talking now, it's really easy for me, and when I talk to people, I'm able to be like, yeah, you know, I was here and then now I'm here. But I guess it's just this the internet represents this unknown space, this void.
Hmm.
But I think that's part of it. I mean, that's part of the game. It's also an opportunity to grow. So I mean,
Yeah.
I'm all for it. Um,
It will also serve as such a good reflection moment. I'm not saying you have to create this content every day or once a week, but like maybe once a month you challenge yourself right now to just put something out that's more on the personal side of like your story or like things that
yeah,
you've gone through. And it will be extremely fulfilling in that process for you because you're like almost letting go of these
yeah,
things that have been inside you for so long.
yeah,
And the people that follow you, consume your content, they're going to support you. And I'll say this: anytime there's any negativity or someone shedding hate on anything that you share, whether it's your personal story or anything else, I always look at that as a win because in order for them to hate on you, they need to consume your content. They need to come up with some feedback in their mind, and then they need to type it out on their phone or their computer. You have
right,
taken up so much of their time and attention in those three little moments that if even if they're spitting back hate to you, the problem isn't you, the problem is them. If they were focused and clear on things they wanted to do with their life, they wouldn't waste any time trying to distract you. So have empathy for those people that might spit hate because in reality, they're just a reflection of themselves. They're disappointed that they're not living the life they wanted for themselves. They're disappointed that they don't have that audacity to go do the thing. So when you see the hate, smile at it and know that it's coming from a deeper place that has nothing to do with you and has more to do with them.
yeah, for sure. I think that's something that I do um, I do find quite easy. And I do, yes, like to have compassion because I understand it's a complete projection. I think that the worry behind it is completely me, which is exciting, as I said, because I know that the moment that I push past it in a way that's aligned with me, then it will feel really like freeing. Um,
Yeah.
I guess have like it's really like I think there are lots of nuggets from this conversation, but actually, the thing I found most valuable is the fact that listening to you talk about this made me feel such a strong like emotion, like opposed to it, that I realized that wow, there's something really here. Because I thought, you know, it's very normal to be nervous about these things, and I'll get there eventually. But I think that the fact that I felt such a strong pull away from it
Mm.
has kind of shown me where there needs to be work, and not necessarily like, you know, aggressive work and get myself out
Mm-mm.
there, but like compassion and understanding and just a closer look at what's really going on.
Yeah.
But I that was a blind spot, not completely,
Mm.
but I definitely wouldn't have said that I was so um, yeah, opposed to it until you'd mentioned it, and I was like, gosh, no, thank you.
Yeah, and know that I'm not promoting and saying that every person that out in the world needs to just be putting themselves on the internet like that. But that's kind of what we're signing up for as coaches
Yeah,
and as thought leaders, right? Like, what a beautiful thing that in 2024, our little cell phones are literally a mini production company. If we went back 20, 30 years ago, we would have to have so much money to do that, and it's a beautiful place where now there is no barrier to entry. Like it's both your and I's responsibility to create engaging content that gets out there to the world that attracts the right people, right? So
yeah,
once again, I'm only challenging you with that because it is the world that you're stepping in,
yeah,
and if you want to see what you're really capable of, that's going to be part of the process, which is just loving yourself for who you are authentically, not judging yourself for your past actions or decisions, and just owning it. Like I look back at all of the seasons of life I've been on in the last 6 or 7 years, and it's fantastic because now I can speak on it in these podcasts or in conversations where it's like, oh, I've hit the reset button of my identity multiple times. Like,
Yeah.
but there's someone out there right now that's so scared to hit that reset button because that's all they've ever known. They've worked the same job for 10 years. They've hated it. They've been in the relationship for 6 years that they don't want to be in. Like, there's so many of us that are afraid to hit that reset button. And the best thing that I can do is just continue to share that I'm hitting it often and here's the way I'm doing it.
Yeah. I think based on, all the steps that you've mentioned, I think the only thing I am not doing is owning it
Mm.
in a way that's like unapologetic. Like I'm very clear, and I can speak about it with friends, family, with partial strangers too. But there is something about it that I'm not quite, yeah, that I
What do you
haven't quite.
think, if you had to pinpoint it truthfully, what's the one or two things that come up for why you're not owning it?
I think there's shame there, and I
Mm-hmm.
always like I think at this point I have hopefully turn all shame into compassion when it comes to my story. Like, because I wouldn't have been able to, metabolize it and like alchemize it and be like, I'm now a coach. Um, and like train and do all those things. So there's a part of me that has definitely been like, hey, like, you know. Um, but yeah, I think that there are parts of my story that I think would surprise other people. And if I'm completely honest, I think that makes that makes me afraid that who I am as a coach will no longer be as valid because, well, I'm kind of psychoanalyzing myself, but what that tells me is that there's part of me that bases parts of my worth and being like put together.
Mm-hmm.
I think though that's like a double-edged sword. I've always been seen as someone who's quite together. Like you're very, always sort of the mature one. And I think that naturally when you've been told that you kind of play to it. And I understand that as a concept. I understand that as how it's played out. But I think there's some parts of it still hiding. So I think, yeah, very short answer is I think there's shame still in the story.
I would challenge you to write a letter to yourself and work through the shame and work through these limiting beliefs that who you were previously needs to be attached to who you are today. For example, 2.5 years ago, when I was living in LA, my weekends were spent raging, drinking, partying for the whole weekend from Friday evening till Sunday evening. I was partying, having the time of my life, and I don't have a regret.
That's a
But
lot of
now I'm the
dedication.
guy, huh?
A lot of dedication.
Yeah, a lot of dedication, dedicated to the game. But now, man, how funny is this? Now I'm the guy who is like, I haven't touched alcohol in 500 plus days.
Yeah, I saw
I
that.
avoid.
Congrats.
Thank you. I'm not looking. I promise. I'm not trying to toot my horn, but let me stick with me. I'm the guy who stays away from toxic dopamine hits. I go to bed at 9:30 p.m. on a Friday and Saturday night. Like, so I'm not afraid to share those older parts of me because that's who I used to be. I'm not attached to that. This is who I am presently, and I'm going to own that 100%.
Mhm.
I'm not going to try to hide that version of me because once again, it gives proof to other people that we can recreate ourselves. We can create a new identity at any moment in time. So you kind of have to laugh at it, right? Like I don't even know. I didn't even do that intentionally, but like me laughing about, yeah, 2 years ago I was raging all weekend long. Like that's what I prioritized then. And that's great. I have no regrets on it. But now my current reality is so much different. And I'm glad that I had those experiences then so that I can now create the reality that I have for myself. So
Yeah.
for you, sit with the shame, journal on it, sit with what are these things that you're so attached to from your past that you feel like you can't let go presently. And just thirdly, I would just challenge you to remind yourself that you are creating your identity in real time. If tomorrow morning you woke up and you said, you know what, I want to be an Olympic athlete. Well, please be the Olympic athlete. Get in the gym starting tomorrow and start telling people you're training to be an Olympic athlete.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like you have the power to tell yourself and to tell the world who you are,
Hmm.
and just challenge yourself to ask yourself who am I trying to become, and does my decisions and actions match that presently? The past doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah. Thank
How we
you.
feel?
Yeah, I feel like I've got some fun work to do. I've gotten a lot of insights because I think I feel as though I don't want to speak surely because I feel like we're always discovering and learning, right? But I've sensed that I have accepted almost well everything, and I sense that it's mostly rooted in like how I think I'll be perceived now that I'm a
Mm-hmm.
coach.
Yes.
This like weight, this title. So that's yeah, and like I said, I do feel like it was not a complete but quite a massive blind spot before this call. So
The last thing I'll share with you is remember, because I have those limiting beliefs that I have to fight through with coaching. Coaching is you being one step forward in front of someone and showing them the path.
yeah.
It is not you're on a podium. It's not that you are Mr. and Mrs. Smart Cookie. It's you are simply one step forward in front of someone else and you're there to guide them through that process. When you think like that, it's so much easier to just see that person eye to eye.
Yeah.
You're not better than them. You're not smarter than them. You're not wiser than them. You just have been through a experience or have more expertise in an experience that they want assistance on that you can help them through. So also as you go through those limiting beliefs, just challenge yourself with that thinking that you're just one step in front of them and that's it. It doesn't make you better, it doesn't make you above or below them. It's just one small step forward.
Thank you.
Absolutely. You got some good action items. Work through some of the activities we talked about, the emotions, one side, what you used to be versus who you are now.
Mhm.
Work through just like what does it look like for serving the person that might be in a career that they don't like or the relationship they don't like. Write the letter to yourself about what's the shame that comes up, what's the old versions of me that I don't want to speak on.
Yeah.
And when you feel right, start testing what it would look like to share some of your story with your community because I think they would appreciate hearing that from you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This has
Absolutely. You feel
been.
good? Was this beneficial? You feel seen and heard?
I feel seen and heard. I can't say I feel good because I'm like,
These are good
no,
emotions. Let it sit. Let it sit. You're,
exactly.
you're
Yeah.
not supposed to feel unstoppable, but you're supposed to be like, ooh, this
I feel.
conversation kind of hit a couple things I need to sit on.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely came into the school like, hey, I'm Leightanna, I'm a coach, and now I feel pretty human. I feel pretty human.
Mm,
Like definitely experience some human emotions and welcoming them in and seeing where I land.
good.
Once that's but yeah, like I wasn't sure because I guess you have a very specific, like you said, you got really specific on the kind of people that you wanted to help, and I guess I just want to say, but I you may already know this that this has been really really helpful.
Mm.
I think you should broaden your niche actually.
I think I
um,
got challenged.
because yeah, I figured we'd talk, yeah, more books, but this has gone in a direction that I wasn't really expecting, and it is what I needed, clearly. So
Mm,
I'm really, really appreciative of you making the time. I got so much value from this. You are what it says on the tin. I don't know if you know that saying, but it's basically
mm-mm.
just that you are you're the hype. Like you really do know what you're doing. This was great, and it's just half an hour of a call, with a stranger.
Mm.
So I know that you're not looking for encouragement from me, but you're going to be great. And please keep doing. Not that you'll stop because now you're working full time as a coach, and I'm done. Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you. I appreciate your time and appreciate the love it is seen and felt. And I am grateful for this time with you today. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. All right.